All right, well, everybody, welcome. Thank you for joining us for this Sanitation in a Disaster class. I'm like looking at my Zoom camera and I've got a Facebook Live going at the same time, and my notes to look at, but hopefully everybody will get their chance to like see a friendly face and not just my focused face. But this is an issue that we really need to get the word out about as much as we can. So I'm going to make the recording available, and please share it and share it and share it. First of all, as I get started, I'm going to give credit to a woman named Catherine McMullen. What I'm sharing with you is her research, her information. You can get on YouTube and watch her videos. All you need to do is a search for First Responder Mom, and she has this information available on her YouTube videos. What I've done is try to kind of make it concise for presenting now, but what I've also prepared is a document that I can share with everybody. Two documents actually. One is a list of like tasks to do to prepare, and the other is the list of things, the steps to actually go through in the case of the actual emergency, which hopefully will be of great service. For me, having that all written down is really helpful. First, I'm going to talk about why it's so important for us to be prepared for this issue. And we will also talk about solutions that people think are a good way to be prepared, that they're going to resort to, and why those solutions actually don't work. And we'll go over how to get prepared so that we can keep our families and our neighborhoods safe. So in a disaster, in a large-scale, long-term loss of water, there's actually different reasons why we could lose water. Pipes are underground, so they're vulnerable to breakage, like from earthquakes. Landslides can cause water loss. Flooding can cause water loss and system contamination. A long-term power outage would also result in long-term water loss, and we could have contamination from like chemicals, blue algae, things like that. State officials expect at least 70% of people to lose water if there is a severe earthquake. And if that happens, what we're talking about isn't the system being down for like the classic, 72 hours. What we're talking about is weeks to months. So we've got to be prepared with like long-term solutions in mind. One of the things that I want to talk about as we look at reasons why this issue is so important is what happened in Haiti after the huge earthquake that they experienced in 2010. 1.1 million people were affected by an outbreak of cholera after the earthquake. People wanted to learn what caused that secondary disaster because it was huge. It was devastating. What investigators learned was that the outbreak was caused by a professionally set up shelter that was disposing of human waste improperly. So from that one shelter not dealing with sanitation in a healthy way, 1.1 million people were affected by cholera. That's why if I'm dealing with, the sanitation in a disaster properly, if you're dealing with it properly, that actually isn't enough. We've got to take the information that I'm going to share with you today, and we have to share it with our neighbors. And hopefully in a large-scale event, we'll have the blessing of our homes still being safe and stable so that we can shelter at home. So what we're going to look at is what the concerns of a loss of water will mean for your home while we're sheltering in place. One of the things that will happen, losing water means that you will have the P-traps in your home drying up. Those little curved pipes that are underneath your sink, and you can see like that little curved part at the base of your toilet. When you lose water for long periods of time, those dry out. What then you will smell coming into your home is hydrogen sulfide. Hydrogen sulfide is an asphyxiant, and it can cause a lot of big health problems. Another fume that would come into your home from the sewer lines is methane, and that's super flammable. We don't want that in the air in our homes either. The third issue that we're dealing with if water is lost because of broken pipes is that the insects and the vermin that live underground and are looking for shelter will be able to get into those broken pipes. From there, they'll have access to our homes. So we don't want that. What I'm going to share with you is what Catherine McMullen developed for how to protect our homes from those incoming gases, from the incoming vermin and insects. And sorry, lost my place in my notes. So we have the time right now to learn the skills. Like, we're all chilling at home, right? There's stuff to do, but we have more time than we have in the past. So this is an ideal time to learn these skills, to acquire the materials that we need to, and actually get set up and practice right now, so that in the moment of a disaster, when stress will be high for other reasons, we won't have the additional stress of figuring this stuff out for the first time. And it also gives us time to start getting the word out and getting our neighborhoods on board. Because in a long-term loss of water, we're going to lose how we normally deal with waste. If some of us are dealing with waste properly, like I said, and others that are not, everybody is actually at risk for the disease hazards that it will cause. Oftentimes, people figure that if there's no sewer anymore, they'll just dig a hole in the backyard. The first reason that works for camping is that you're out in the mountains. There's miles and miles of open space around you. The second reason that works is because you're only there for the short term. By the time the insects and the animals have found that shallow hole that you dug for your waste and are digging around in it, you've already packed up camp and headed home. So if you bring that scenario home to a suburban area, our houses are really close together, our backyards aren't that big. Remember that if we have significant damage to water infrastructure, state officials warn that it could be weeks to months before getting water back online. How many of those shallow holes are you going to dig? If you want the kids to be able to go out and play, or if you want to have a backyard garden, like, how close to those activities do you feel comfortable with having your outdoor bathroom? If you're thinking about the pioneers and wondering what about their outhouses, those holes were dug 20 to 30 feet deep, and people had their outhouses as far away from their homes as they could. Even with those precautions in place, cholera and other intestinal illnesses were still a huge issue in those days. Another solution that people have is those camp potties with like the specialized like biohazard bags. Again, if we're talking about a long-term event, having enough of those bags will become very expensive. And you'll still have the issue of disposing of them. Waste management will not be accepting bags of putrefied human waste. During large-scale events, they become very, very watchful about stuff like that. And actually, that's assuming that waste management is even still up and running. So if you're bagging waste and then piling it in the backyard or something, you're still creating the issue of insects and animals tearing through that plastic into those bags and spreading disease. A travel trailer bathroom is something that people also think about. That also is just a short-term solution because eventually you're going to have to dump it. And if wastewater is shut down because of a large-scale event, the dump stations for the trailers will also be closed. Pouring water down a toilet to flush it is something that we've done before, but it's also not a safe solution. First, you'd have to store a crazy amount of water to be able to literally flush it down the toilet in the case of an emergency. And second, in a situation of broken pipes, it's not like the waste will be making it all the way to the sewage treatment plant. It'll be getting out into the groundwater or even possibly causing a sewage backup in your neighbor's basement. So for all these reasons, again, I'm going to emphasize that this is a group effort. What we're talking about isn't just creating comfort or safety for your family. It's also about not causing harm to your neighbors. So we'll start in on what to actually do. I'm going to give you the action list that I mentioned. And please, please, please don't wait. Start practicing, start getting the things in place so that you're ready before that time. We talked about the hydrogen sulfide, the methane, the insects and vermin. So first, what I'm going to tell you about is how to prevent those from getting into your home. Now, in the showers that aren't attached to tubs and in the floor of your utility room, there's those round drain covers. They're about this big around. They've usually got the little square holes. There's the 2 screws on the side that like fasten it down to the floor. So one of your first homework assignments is going to be to go and find those and remove them. They might be a little rusted in or even actually grouted over, but you need to take the time to remove those. And then what you'll do is you'll take a tape measure and you'll measure the size of the pipe. Next, you'll hop online or, go to a hardware store if you're itching to get out of the house, and you're going to buy what's called a test plug. And they're not very expensive, maybe like $4 to $8 depending on the size. And you'll keep that next to each of those drains or in a place where you can find it, so it's accessible. Then it's ready to go in case of an emergency. In the actual emergency, you'll be able to just pop those in. It has a little thing that you twist that expands the plug, and that's what's going to keep fumes and pests from being able to enter through those drains. In the case of an actual emergency, you actually have a lot of drains that already have plugs. Your bathroom sinks, your bathtubs, even your kitchen sink came with plugs. So in the case of an emergency, you'll just go around and get all of those plugs put in. And if you think a child or someone in the home will go back around and unplug all the sinks, just like put some duct tape over it. Mark, we're not using these sinks for a while anyway. Because again, if the sewage treatment pipes in the system are compromised, you're not going to be filling up your sink and doing dishes and then sending that water down the line to cause groundwater contamination and sewage backups and things like that. We're just not using the sinks during this time. And those funny little, the overflow plugs in the sinks and in the tubs, just take some duct tape and kind of plug that hole, put some tape over it to cover it up. And then the next thing that you're going to take care of is the toilet. First, you'll turn off the water going into the toilet. Even if there's no water in the system, like during an actual emergency, you want to turn off that little hose going into the toilet. That way, when water is restored, you get to control when you're ready for water to be coming back into your home. So you'll turn that off and then scoop all the water out of the tank, scoop all the water out of the bowl. That's what you're going to do in the emergency, but that's actually what you're going to do on one of your toilets for this practice, preparation run too. Scoop all the water out, scrub it so there aren't any lingering germs, and you're ready to create the dry potty. First though, what you're going to do is you're going to take something like a racquetball and you're going to shove it down in the hole in the toilet to plug that pipe. If your toilet is larger than a standard toilet, you'll need something larger like a lacrosse ball. Please, please don't use a tennis ball. That's basically just paper. If, that can get disintegrated if an animal does make it up through your pipes, it's something that it could chew through. And also an open cell foam ball, like a Nerf ball, is insufficient. The lacrosse ball and the racket balls are good choices because they're really, really dense. They're quite firm. They have enough give that you can get them wedged down in there good and tight, but it's a stronger, denser rubber. And If those balls are still too small for your particular toilet, then you could try like a really dense ball, like from the pet store, a toy for a dog. So what we're going to do, we want to be able to get the ball back out, like when you're done testing sizes and also at the end of the emergency. So the way to get the ball back out is you're actually going to shove it down in the end of a tube sock. Then you'll grease it with something like shortening so that it forms a good seal, and you'll shove that back as far as you can into the pipe. Then when water's restored, or when you're done with your practice run and life is back to normal, you'll be able to pull that sock out and out comes your plug. So those are all the things that you need to do in your house to protect your home from the fumes and from the vermin. Now we're going to talk about how to properly take care of the waste when you don't have access to sewage service. So we're going to set up at least one bathroom in the house for actual bathroom use. Remember, you're in charge of making sure that things are kept sanitary while you're managing this new system. It might be easier for you to have only one bathroom set up for actual toileting versus, using all of them in the whole house like we're used to. All the other bathrooms are plugged up to prevent fumes and vermin, and you can just walk away and close the door. I will say, however, it is good to have more than one kit on hand, just in case your home is like one of the stable, structurally sound ones in the neighborhood and other families are staying with you. So you might need to have more than one bathroom that's like being used as a bathroom. Or like if somebody is ill and you're quarantining them away from everybody else in the house, you might want to have the capability to let them be using a separate bathroom. Or if you want one for your travel trailer. So it's good to have more than one kit on hand, even if there is the possibility that you're only going to be setting up one bathroom at once. So there are two really, really important rules. The first one is that we keep the bathroom set up inside. That's part of how we control the environment. That's part of how we keep animals out, keep things sanitary, keep things safe. The second rule is that we are going to separate liquid and dry. Putrefied human waste is when the urine and the solid waste is mixed together, and that's when it becomes one of the most toxic substances on Earth. When it's separated, it's something that it becomes more manageable to deal with without like specialized equipment and chemicals and stuff. So first, you're going to have a 5-gallon bucket with a camping potty seat. You don't even have to have a liner in it because this is just for the urine. So you'll teach your kids, you'll like help people remember, you can label seats if you need to. The urine just goes in the potty bucket. And unless someone in your family has like a kidney infection, urine actually isn't even dangerous. And as often as you decide to empty your bucket, you just take it outside, you dump it on some gravel, you dump it next to a bush or something, and you're done. If you dump it in the same spot on your lawn over and over again, you'll kill the grass from over-mineralization. Maybe at that point you won't really care about the state of your yard, but it's worth pointing out. Don't empty it into your garden just because it's too concentrated to be a good fertilizer. There are people that actually do use urine as a fertilizer, but like they've had the practice with proper dilution and yada, yada, yada. So don't, unless you actually know what the right ratios are and stuff, don't dump the urine in your garden either. And then you bring the bucket back in, spray it with some disinfectant, and you're good to go. On to the solid waste. We're going to turn your clean, dry toilet into the place for the solid waste. In an emergency, you're going to need to have a lot of garbage bags on hand. Waste management might not be picking up your garbage, so you could have some of that piling up. You're also going to need a lot of bags for the dry toileting, so be sure that you've got garbage bags in your storage. And because we're separating the dry waste from the liquid, you don't have to have the special biohazard bags. Just some good, strong garbage bags will be thick enough. So you're going to get your garbage bag and line that bowl that you dried out, you cleaned out. It's nice and sanitary now. And you're going to have a 2-gallon bucket with a lid, and that's going to be filled with kitty litter, and it's going to have a scoop in it. You'll put the scoop in there, and you're ready to deal with the solid waste. When someone needs to go to the bathroom, they'll sit on the bucket and go pee, and then they'll get on the toilet and go poop, and then they get a scoop of the kitty litter, spread it over the solid waste, and they're done. The kitty litter desiccates the solid waste, and it also prevents odor. Separating the liquids from the solids is what makes it so that we now have waste that we can actually manage in a safe way. We talked about why we can't bury the putrefied waste, but we can bury the solid kitty litter waste in a safe way. One of the homework items for, right now, before an actual emergency, is to figure out where lines come into the home so that you know where it's safe in your yard to dig a hole without damaging the lines. Also, you don't want to bury your solid waste in a current garden area. So you'll dig a hole about 2.5 feet deep, about 2 feet wide. For carrying the bag out of the house, it might be a good idea to have like a box or a Rubbermaid tub sitting in the bathtub next to the toilet, so that then when you remove the bag from the toilet, you can set it in that bin and be able to carry it through the house without the risk of like the plastic tearing. In a previous class, somebody also suggested actually setting up two potty buckets, one for pee, one lined for the solid waste with the garbage can, so that when it's time to take that out, you're just grabbing the whole bucket by the handle. You get out to the yard and, go through the steps that I'm going to teach you. So, you can get creative. You can see what works best for you. But when you have as much dry waste and kitty litter in that dry toilet as, to the point that you're ready to empty it, you'll take that bag out, you get out to the hole, and you don't just like throw the whole bag in, because you want the waste and the kitty litter to be able to decompose. So what you actually do is you empty the bag into the hole, and then you lay the empty bag on top to act as a barrier. The waste will be able to decompose, and the plastic will be another like layer to help keep out the vermin. You throw on a little bit of dirt from when you dug the hole, and the next thing that you need is a big like board or one of those metal garbage can lids to put over the hole, and put a weight on top of it so that kids and animals and stuff can't move that lid aside, because we want to protect the hole. We don't want animals or kids or anything messing around with that. And so now every time you bring out your solid waste, you're just going to do the same thing. You dump out the waste, you cover it with the empty bag, you throw on a little bit of dirt from digging the hole, you put on your board, you put on the weight that are working together to make your lid. When the hole is filled and you've got about 4 to 6 inches from the top, you're going to cover it with another product that's easy to get at like garden stores and places like that. It's called hydrated lime. You need to wear a face mask and gloves when you're working with it. And you'll put 4 to 5 inches of the lime on top of the waste hole, and then you're going to mound all of your soil left from digging the hole on top of that. The lime, like animals might still smell it even in spite of the lime, but if they dig through the dirt and get to that layer of lime, they're going to be able to feel that it's toxic, and that'll keep them out. Also, it helps to denature the waste. And so hopefully by that point, the disaster is over and water is restored. But if you need to, now you just go dig another 2.5 foot deep hole. So there's a couple of other issues that are worth mentioning. Toilet paper will go in with the solid waste. It'll decompose just fine. So when the girls need to pee, either they need to use a peri bottle, like you get after you've had a baby. They need to either, rinse off, or they need to use the toilet paper and then put it in with the solid waste. Be sure to teach them not to put it in the pee bucket, because that's going to create more of a mess, and then you're going to have like gross toilet paper laying around wherever it is that you've dumped out your pee. So toilet paper goes in with the solid waste. Diapers are another issue. If you're storing those for an emergency, like losing a job or something, that's great. But in the event that there's a stop to garbage pickup, you need to not be putting diapers full of human waste in the garbage. In that kind of an event, garbage is going to be piling up, and you don't want the human waste in your environment. So it's highly recommended that you also store cloth diapers and switch to those in the event that there's a loss of garbage service and a loss of water. And again, my personal recommendation is that you go ahead and get those cloth diapers and give it a few days of practicing right now. If you wait for when a lot of other things have changed, the stress levels will be really high. But in using them in an emergency, you would scrape the solid waste into the dry potty, sprinkle on some of the kitty litter, and then you'd have a diaper bucket off to the side with a little bit of water and like some borax or some other dry laundry detergent, and just keep putting in the soiled diapers until you're ready to do laundry. So just as a total tangent, hopefully something that this gets you thinking about is how you would do laundry in the event of a loss of water. Give that some thought, spend some time doing a little bit of research, get the tools on hand that you would want to use for doing your laundry if you don't get to use your washing machine. Feminine hygiene is also something that they recommend switching to a non-disposable option. There are a lot of tutorials out there for making homemade pads. My personal preference is actually a menstrual cup. That's really easy to just rinse out, boil when you're done. It's super low maintenance. But again, practice. Try different brands now, figure out what you like, get used to using them now before the emergency hits and you're already super stressed out. For people in my neighborhood, Jeremiah's been working on putting together a group buy for the materials that we would need for the potty kit. It looks like they'll be around $115 per kit. So that's the buckets, the seats, the lime, the kitty litter, the scoop, all of that stuff. As far as I know, the only thing that he's not including in that kit that he's assembling is the gloves, just because different people have like different size hands. You might have a different preference for like how thick you want it. So we're not ordering the gloves, but as far as I know, like everything else is included in that kit. For people outside of my neighborhood, what I would recommend is that we can give you the list of the sources. He's already priced out like the best places to order these different materials. I can give you that list of the suppliers. Now that you have this information, like you kind of need to go out and proselytize to your neighborhood. You've got to get other people on board so that they're also disposing of their waste properly and helping to keep the whole neighborhood safe. So as you get the people around you on board, then you can be the one to put together the group buy for your area if that's something you guys are interested in doing. And then, like I said, I've got a couple of lists ready, your action items for what to gather, for what to practice, your action items in the case of the actual emergency, the steps to go through. So I can email those to people. If you're watching via Facebook Live, like just private message me your email address and I'll email you this information. I can email you my notes for this actual class if you want to be able to share it with other people. And we can just try, to get the information out. Because if just a couple of us are doing it, there's still going to be other people that just don't know better that are going to be contributing to the spread of disease. So that's about the size of it. If people have questions, though, I would love to answer any questions that people might have. If there's something I haven't covered or you have, real quick, one of the questions that people asked, the last class that I gave, there was one person that was concerned. She was like, sorry, I know this is kind of TMI, but what if the poop and the pee come out at the same time? She's like, how do I deal with separating then? And so we brainstormed a little bit about ways to handle that. You could have a scoop and get it out of the liquid and put it in with the dry. You could spread like some cheesecloth across so that it can catch the solid waste. It really is important to do your best to be able to separate the liquid from the dry. So, get creative, think of what'll work for you guys. Another thing that I can recommend to people is what's called a composting toilet. It's the one seat that you sit on, and the toilet itself actually does the job of separating the liquid from the dry. One brand is called Nature's Head. It's a really amazing system. It's just a lot more expensive than the, $110, $120 kit that we're trying to assemble. You can order a Nature's Head composting toilet, but those are around $950. So it's a great system. Like, I've researched it. There's tons of reviews. People really love them. If that fits in your budget, that's awesome. And if it doesn't, then what we've discussed in this class is a great way to achieve the same thing. And if you do go the route of the composting toilet, you would still, pour out the liquid like on some gravel or next to a bush. You would still dispose of the dry waste in that hole and, cover the top with the lime. You'd still go through the steps like we just discussed. So any other questions, you can unmute yourself and we can answer any questions. No. Okay. Well, so like I say, if you want that, those lists, if you want to be able to put together a group buy and help assemble kits for people in your neighborhood, then I'm happy to send you that information. If you have any questions that occur to you after, then let me know. So one that I'm getting, please email notes and lists. That would be so great. I'm assuming that you're joining from the Such group. I can send that out to everybody, but if Dell is all that I'm saying. I don't know who you are. So, okay, you are in the Such group. Okay, perfect. So I'll just email that out to the whole group. So I'm happy to share the information, and it looks like people don't have any other questions. So thanks for joining tonight, you guys, and be sure to get the word out. This is kind of one that we are going to go down hard together if we don't get the word out and help people have a better way to deal with this issue. So thank you. Great to see you guys. Have a good night.